This is satisfying Cactus sprint review for sprint 3. This is the first time I've been a Scrum Master, and I've had the job for 2 days, so bear with me because it might be a little bit rough. One of the things that I'd like to bring to this is I'd like to make the process as automated as possible, and to because a Scrum Master has basically 2 jobs. I interact with all the people who are doing work and working on tickets, and then I also work by taking tasks from above and explaining what the impact that the changes to priority will have on the actual work that gets done. And I'd like to make that as transparent as possible so that people can know what we're doing and what any changes in priorities, how that will impact the actual process of getting the work done. I'd like to be a lot more Jira focused, and I'm sorry I got these slides out so late. I'm going to work mostly in Jira, but if you have sprint retrospectives, would like to add those to the slides because that's a better place for them. Overview. So 3-week sprint started right after cord build, ended today. We did about 300 story points. We have about 100 in progress and 100 that are still to do. And we added 82 midway through the sprint. Maintenance. So I have a list of maintenance issues here and who completed them. Do we want to go through the first few, or yours, Matteo?
So there was an issue in the GUI with the date parsing that basically whenever a synchronizer was updating a model, an event is pushed to Redis, and the dates were not in the timestamp format but in the string format. And so there was a misalignment with the REST API, and that has been fixed both in the GUI and in XOS. Second one was that we were not considering the 2-step deletion in XOS. Basically, when we mark an item to be deleted, it doesn't get immediately deleted, but a field gets set to deleted equal true, so that the synchronizer can pick it up and clear the backend. And now the GUI is correctly displaying those information. The third one is the patch in platform install that brought the local scenario back to working again. And the cord 2240 Max reported last week a bug in the GUI extension. So if they are including dependencies that are not also in the core, there is an issue there. I'm still investigating it and trying to figure out how to solve it, but no news on that front. And the last one that I have is a mismatch in the credential for the Tosca engine between the local profile and the cord profile, because the credentials were duplicated in 2 places, and we were using the wrong one. There are 2 patches in flight for that. They should be merged by today, and they need to be merged before we cut the release. That's it from me.
So on the patch that's still in progress that needs to be done before we do the release, can we note on there somehow that this is a requirement? Like, I guess what we did before is tag them with the 4.1
tag.
So we can go into Jira and just see what 4.1 bugs are still outstanding.
Sure, I can add a tag.
Cool, thanks.
Okay. Scott?
So this next one, Cord 2034, that was that the ONOS synchronizer playbook had hard-coded ONOS username and password in it, rather than using the ONOS username and password that were in the ONOS service object in the data model. So that has been fixed.
Okay, the next few are mine. We had some issues where they were related to error handling in Image Builder, where it would print a trace when a 404 happened when it tried to pull a non-existent image, which isn't really an error. And also there's something for catching if you couldn't connect to the Docker daemon, it would throw an error. And now it handles those both more gracefully. 2303 is making it so that the full URL, the full fully qualified domain name is used in various places in Tosca, so that because inside containers frequently the domain suffix isn't specified, and that lets that work better. The 2321 fixes the local scenario that goes along with Mateo's patch at 2310. The two that are in progress, one is changing some things about how interfaces are brought up. This actually might have to get fixed for the eCord global scenario, so I'm going to put some time into that. And the last one is making it so that you can build images in the local repo that are not in the manifest. That'll probably end up pushing it into the fourth sprint. Let's see. Next section, unit testing framework. This does not let me get to that. Unit testing framework. Sathan? Sathan?
Hey, yeah, I'm on. So I don't see the item you're talking about. I guess it's probably the static analysis, basic static checker. So there's a design document out there. We've brainstormed about the strategy for doing this, laid out the rules we want to implement, but it's actually not developed. So this had to be put off because of all the other MCOD related work that had to be done.
This is not critical for the 4.1 release, though.
Nope.
Okay.
Scott?
So these items, there's several of them that are all related here. So the first two are automate generation of model policy and sync-step test frameworks. Fortunately, it turned out we were able to use the same framework for both of those. So there's just one mock framework that is automatically generated for synchronizer and model policy tests. It's generated on demand, since each individual module that's using it may want its own mock with its own, service-specific objects in it. So that is done, and that was used to generate the eCord model policy and sync step unit tests. So we now have tests in eCord for the VEG service, as well as the VNAAS service. The fourth item there is to resolve issues with synchronizer framework tests. So there were some of the synchronizer framework tests that needed to be updated to use the new automated framework. That is done. I had a little bit of an issue cherry picking to master, so I have a manual cherry pick that is just waiting on Jenkins test now, and that will be merged to master as well. The final issue is prepare ground for unit test harness. That's actually held up on a subtask that I think is assigned to Mateo. I'm not sure. The subtask, I believe, is to collect coverage statistics. Yeah, so I think we just didn't get to that one. I don't know. We may want to reassign that one to me. I'm not sure what your thoughts on that were, Mateo, whether you're still handling or you've handed off that whole task to me or not.
I can look at the coverage report. Shouldn't be towards, and I've already done that for the main XOS test, so it makes sense if I pick it up.
Okay, great. Yeah, it seems like we're close to closing that one out then. Regardless, I wouldn't think it's a blocker on 4.1 to collect coverage statistics.
Okay, the last one, setting up SonarQube. Luca got me the information for that. I logged in, he made me an admin, and then I unbecame an admin. So we're still fighting with that to try to get that going. That'll probably happen as soon as I can get all our permissions sorted out. Okay, next, expanding QA coverage. Do you guys want to go over what you have here or in the JIRA tasks first?
Yeah, maybe we can go here because some of the JIRA tasks we have not updated them, if it's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so this is like I haven't put the JIRA tickets also because just before the meeting we found this and then just updated. So we were not sure what was the template for the meeting.
Right, right.
Okay, so for the most of the tasks that we took in this sprint was aligning the Jenkins jobs. There are lots of test jobs that we have currently. So what we did was like we wanted to make sure that we are referring to one Jenkins script. So and then use the same file for most of the tests instead of having multiple copies in each Jenkins jobs. So we made changes to those by making them parameterized and then calling them from the Jenkins. And there was also a task for integrating gRPC tests. The gRPC tests were written some time back, and now they have been integrated into the Jenkins jobs. And there is another one that was created by Kailash, the Jenkins job to run the unit test. So that was done. And there are some updates to MCOD based Jenkins jobs. Some of the MCOD is going several changes, so we also have to make some changes to the test. So, and we also need to update some of the Jenkins jobs. So that is going on. I shouldn't say completely it is done because it's still like we are trying to complete it by end of this week, and mostly before the release cut for 4.1, we should be able to finish that. And then finally, we integrated the end-to-end test for RCOD into Jenkins, and these have been achieved as part of the code build, and we are able to run them integrate into the Jenkins jobs. And there is another task which is in progress. There are lots of functional tests from code tester, and the plan is to have functional tests for each of the modules for our code, which are already existing in code tester, and integrate them into Jenkins job. So that will take a while. There are lots of changes also that needs to be done to the existing tests, so might slip into the next sprint as well. And then it might go to a lower priority based on the other tasks that we have. So that's all for the QA coverage.
Okay. I think I also have
a ticket.
Well, I have this that has some other stuff. I still have to make the Sanity pipeline job more efficient, but I think that covers everything. Do you see anything in here that isn't?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll accept that.
Okay. Uniform development environment. Off the end again. Okay, Matteo?
My screen is still updating, so
okay.
Probably will take
Let me know when you can see the review.
Like popular filters.
Oh, it's not going. Oh, there we go.
There it is.
So the first task was to shrink down the GUI container size. We had at least 2 containers for each deployment, and then one for each GUI extension, and they were all about 1 GB. As now the core container is 100 megabytes, and the GUI extension one are around 5 megabytes each one. So I think it's a good improvement for the build.
Okay, the next few are mine. One is we had a problem where there was a dependency in the makefile that ran vagrant when it didn't necessarily need to be run. And the next two are multi-stage build support. Let Matteo do his 2188 to make the GUI containers smaller. Also, the last one, so that we don't have to list every synchronizer in every profile and download extra ones. Now it's building those dynamically from the profile. And the 2246 was out a thing that we got from Cord Build. We are looking to, I haven't done this yet, but something to lint check the Tosca files created so that people people have early warning that their Tosca might be invalid when they're doing development. Deployments and build automation.
Can you refresh?
It's coming.
Go back to the slide, please.
Back to the slide. Updating. There we go.
A few things are in progress. We were hoping to finish the China mobile deployment. I guess, I don't know, 90% at least of that is gone, but there are still problems in the data plane connectivity. So we're waiting for them to have the ONOS logs. So that's still in progress. And then Entity East deployment, even if I've done some stuff, but there are lots of problems really not related to core, but to the underlying connectivity, like the IPsec VPN going down very often. And then I've been working on the how to deploy core in China guide. Some software already today has been moved to GitHub. So if you look at the guide now, you will see that the repo software now is hosted on our Gerrit repository instead of downloading that from Google. Some VMs that before were on Vici are now on GitHub, and also Open Networking Linux now is hosted on our GitHub. I've started to put together finishing with VMs. I have a problem with the MCore VMs. Unfortunately, GitHub accepts files up to 2 gigs, and of course, the MCore VMs are 2.1 gigs. So this is a very recent problem from today, and I still don't know what to do, but I'll figure out something.
Also, GitHub's not exactly targeted at binary files, so that's going to be a problem. Anyway.
No, but we do a trick that also OpenStack does the same. Okay. We just create a release and we associate these VMs as artifacts of the release. That's how we do. And those, I mean, are supposed to be also binaries. When you go in the UI interface, it tells you upload binaries. So, but still, it's up to 2 gigs. It works for all the images except the 2 EPC MCore images. So we'll see how to deal with that. Anyway, I put together already offline all the documents on how to deploy cord in China. I'll upload them once the software is really all available on Git or wherever we will put it. Anyway, making progress on that. That's it.
Okay, I think you got everything that's on this list. Our next slide is eCord. Is Mark there? Are you on, Mark?
Right. I didn't put anything on the slide as we talked about earlier.
I put
so
yeah.
Jira.
Okay, so here's everything that's in Jira. There we go.
Okay, so quite a lot of things. I don't know if I need to go through each one individually, but basically it's releasing eCord, right? There's a bunch of, there's really 2 things that weren't done or not fully completed. One is the automation of the fault management. the feature is usable. It's there's manual configuration on the guide. Automation is not done. It's not part of the release. I think that's acceptable. The second one is, and that was really strategical when we started sprint, is we were looking if we can add one more service to it, but we decided, we didn't have the cycles to do that. Then the rest is really a bunch of bug fixes that we discovered while doing all the last-minute integration and all the last-minute testing. As you know, not all the tests in Code are automated at this point, so some of these things like test UNI injection and so on, we only discovered while doing manual testing in the past couple of days. Fixes for netconf, the guide has been, it's fairly polished and good to go. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Okay, and I think MCord is next.
Yes, I put at least the guide. It's still in progress, but it's really finished also here. Now, with the MCord stand-up of this morning, I plan to warn everyone that I will put it in read-only mode, and I will transfer it to Gerrit.
Did we lose Luca?
What?
Okay. Oh, okay.
Sorry?
You cut out there for a minute, Luca. Can you repeat what you were saying?
Sorry, I was just saying that after the MCord stand-up of today, I will say that I will put it in read-only mode, so people won't be able to edit it anymore. And within an hour or so, I should be able to move it to Gerrit. I'll keep the patch as a draft, so it won't be visible publicly yet. And once the MCord software is really ready, I will just publish it. But it's basically done.
Okay, we have other items here. I think these are Andy's.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of items for MCord. I don't know that I'll go through all of them, but the first one I think is maybe useful to let people know about. So previously it was only possible to use public key login to VNFs or to VMs. And so I added password login to the synchronizer frameworks because the MCord VNFs all expected password login. So that gives us some extra flexibility. Otherwise, I guess my tasks mainly have to do with creating the MCord profile for the release that uses the NG40 testing appliance, and keeping that updated, and then also helping to debug services and other issues that popped up. So just looking through the list here, right, so Core 2285, we needed a license file to be added to the NG40 emulator image. So we added that to the synchronizer for that service. Yeah, these are mostly, I think, just profile related things and bug fixes, like I said. A couple of things that I didn't get around to is end-to-end testing of the MCord profile. So we don't have an automated way to like make MCord test. But it would be nice if we got that at some point. But I just didn't have time to do it. Things are still coming together. And then this other in-progress task, 2283, update MCord profile for Radisys MME. That is I think a 5.0 related task. So we may, I guess, I'm not exactly clear on the plans for MCord for 5.0, but I guess guess we want to expand the VNFs that are distributed with mPort, and I think the Radisys MME might be on that list. So, but it's not critical for the release that we're doing right now. So that's it for me. So maybe Jian Hao is not on the call, but so I can speak for him. This 2289 add synchronizer and playbook for NG40 emulator, that is done. I think it just was not updated in Jira. So this the NG40 emulator is being set up correctly right now, as far as we know.
I think Luca went over his next few. Matteo?
This is just the other side of the bug I described before with the synchronizer update and the date.
Okay. Ping Ping?
Ping is not here. I think she's fighting with the last fixes on the pod.
Okay. I guess Sapan, you're next.
Okay. So 1972 migrate EPC to Chord 4.0 happened in the previous sprint. There's 2272 modify mChord services to follow best practices. This had a whole bunch of small things like dropping deprecated interfaces, deprecated fields in the synchronizer steps of the VENB and the SP gateway services. And it had this big item, which was breaking the assumption that there can only be one instance of the service graph. So every service has only one service instance. So this was a cross-cutting change that went across this and the VPC service. And so the outcome is that you can now bring up multiple instances of the EPC services. Then there was configure EPC nested services via VEPC. So that's bringing up the EPC, the set of EPC services automatically via this the convenience mechanism of VEPC as a service. So that this change coordinated with the others. You bring up one VEPC service instance and it brings up all the configuration items needed for the other services to function. There's a bunch of bugs, network not coming up. There's a slew of these. They're all fixed now. The two things that are outstanding, but actually already have patches that have been tested lightly, and I'm going to continue testing them when this meeting finishes. So there's one that we found out about yesterday, which requires that VMs of the VENB and one of the SP gateway services are brought up on the same node. So I implemented a generic feature in XOS by extending the synchronizer's node selection scheduler that lets you place constraints on service instances so that you can specify a node label on your service instance, and it makes sure that instances with the same node label come up on the same node. So
I thought we already had a node label mechanism, because we've used that in our code to make sure that we place the VSG in the right leaf.
Right. So this is an extension of that. So first the node label mechanism in our code was implemented in the VSG synchronizer. It wasn't part of core. So not reusable. The second thing is that the way that mechanism works is that an administrator hand selects a bunch of nodes and labels them, with a node label, and then when bringing up services on onboarding them, you also label service instances with that label. Here, the selection happens automatically. So you just you specify a constraint, you label a bunch of service instances without actually committing to the specific node they're going to bind to. So, the first time around, you pick a node or pick a bunch of nodes, arbitrarily based on whichever is loaded the least. And then following bindings, obey constraints. You can actually mix the two. It's implemented quite generically. So you can actually create a pool of nodes with a given node label and then, mix the two approaches. But yeah, this isn't merged yet, but it seems to be working. I'm going to test it a bit more. And another thing that's tested to work and patches are out there, but not merged, is deletions of the VEPC service. So when you delete a VEPC service instance, it should delete all of the nested service instances and everything should get cleaned up. And there's some things that weren't getting cleaned up. So this is a bug fix that I'm hopeful these things are in good shape and we'll be able to check them into the end. If it doesn't make the first RC, it should definitely be able to get in next week. So that's it for me.
Scott, do you want to go?
Yeah. This is subnet information wrong for controller networks. So this was a bug, I think Andy noticed it a couple days ago, and both Sapin and I, we worked on it together. What was happening, there were sort of a couple different reasons for this. One was that sync steps, the object for sync step was being used by multiple, so the code object for sync step was being used by multiple objects in the data model. So they would tend to clobber each other when they ran in parallel. And there were two reasons for that. One was an issue in the synchronizer core, which Sapin fixed, so they would not share the same code object. And the other was that apparently for no good reason, the sync step stored something in self.subnet, and that persisted throughout the invocation of the class. So both of those have been fixed, and that issue is now resolved.
Yeah, the synchronizer core, just to pitch in there, the synchronizer core issue was, pretty severe. It could have affected, other synchronizers as well, causing weird behavior. So hopefully this should improve the robustness of synchronizers in general.
Okay, can someone speak? Is Wuzhong on, or can someone speak to his items?
So it sounds like maybe he's not on, but sorry?
He's not here in the room.
Okay. These items are all related to the synchronizers and playbooks for the Intel NGIC images. So the VSP, GW, C, and U services, and then the third one, Cord 2136. We thought at one point we would also have an SDN controller service that was part of the release, but that is subsequently decided to not be included. But I guess he finished the synchronizer for that as well.
Okay, that's it for MCord. Fabric. You guys want to talk about these, and then I can switch to Jira.
Yeah, I'm going to stay with the slides. So for Fabric features improvement, in the spring we've merged the code that supports dynamic interface config, and we also have a 1.11 true RC1 release before the Thanksgiving holiday, and right now we are fixing the bugs on RC, and hopefully we're going to have a release pretty soon. That's all about Fabric feature improvement. And if we go to the next one, There's some delay over here. You still see the same slide. Yeah.
I switched to Jira. Is there any additional things in the Jira tickets that?
No, nothing specific.
Okay.
So yeah, if you switch back to that slide, the next
Okay.
slide, actually.
Okay. Dual homing?
Yeah, dual homing. So we're still in the progress of fixing this delay discovery of connect point of the dual home host, and we also received several bug reports from our partners, and we're trying to, trying to fix all of them, and hopefully we're going to have a official release of Trellis maybe later next week, I guess. That's all about dual homing and DHCP Relay. Yeah, there's only one item on Jira. I don't think we need to look at Jira because I already summarized everything in the slide. So,
Okay.
Yeah, DHCP Relay. So we fixed our bugs in this sprint. These are the related Jira tickets. And we also support a per device related agent ID configuration. We also support prefix delegation right now, thanks to the contribution from Nokia. And there are two things that's under review right now. First one is the moving DHCP v6 relay to use the store for further lease query features. And we also have several bug fixes under review. And that's it.
Okay, multicast. There's nothing here, so I'm going
We
to.
have nothing, and we haven't planned anything about multicast in this sprint.
Okay, and let me just check that there's nothing in the review. Okay, there's nothing in there. Okay, A chord. Nothing there.
No news.
Doesn't look like. It doesn't look like there's anything in there either. Container Brigade. Opie, are you on?
Yeah. So maybe we can switch back to the Jira. It's a little more fine-grained there.
Okay.
But in general, there's a lot of work going on with linker networks. They've essentially been fixing a bunch of bugs associated with the OVS-based overlay network. Actually, there should be more.
Yeah, I might have not the epic that do you know which epic they assigned it to?
Yeah, I think that epic looks okay. In any case, I can just give an overview. They have been working on a bunch of issues around the OVS network, specifically around implementing a DHCP server and an IPAM service that is cluster wide. Earlier it was per node, now it is cluster wide. Jono has also been working specifically, I think, around a bug fix in VTN that will allow it to take over a VTN net, an OVS, existing OVS network. Jono, if you like, you can add more to that. But apart from that, I have been working on an Ansible playbook for deploying Kubernetes, the latest version of Kubernetes in CORD, specifically focusing right now on vagrant images, but we'll eventually move that to physical pod. But for now, I'm still working on that, specifically looking at a couple of things. One is deployment of Kubernetes on 1404, which will be a temporary solution, but then later moving to 1604. That's it from me about that. Jono, do you want to add a little bit on the work that you were doing?
Yeah, just quickly, I think in this sprint we finished off the work, like you say, to have VTN be able to use an existing or pre-existing OVS based network that was created by something else. And I think that's what we've talked about going with that approach in Cord as well, rather than having VTN create the bridges and SSH into nodes and put IP addresses into random things like that. We want to have that kind of provisioned as part of the bring up of the compute node, and then have VTN be able to just sort of sit on top and program those bridges. There was another bug with pushing the service port config to VTN after the container port had actually been added to the OVS. That wasn't working, so I fixed that in conjunction with Hyunsun. And yeah, in this room we were able to successfully bring up two Kubernetes pods on different nodes and have them communicate with one another over the VTN run network. So it seems the basic 4D model is working here, and kind of a matter of you know, cleaning it up to be able to move forward. That's all.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything for containers? Alrighty. Performance Brigade. I looked and I don't think.
Performance Brigade is not really active right now.
Okay.
So there is already a proof of concept for the OVS DPTK integration that is part of Cord 4.0. And I think the next steps for Performance Brigade are maybe working with the Container Brigade and 99 Cloud to update OpenStack so that we have a more recent version that will support many of the features that of DBTK that we've been backporting from Liberty into OpenStack Kilo right now.
Okay, that sounds good. Is there anything else that we've missed that we should go over, or I can start talking about the next sprint? Okay, so 5.0 release planning is starting next week during the Core TST at 10 o'clock. That's a change from, it was scheduled later in the day. That's a Tuesday. We're going to have time to get the RCs worked out for the next about a little over a week. So that's up to the next Monday, and then Monday after next. And then we have Sprint 4, which is a 3-week with a holiday break sprint from the 11th to the 5th. And then 2 more sprints, and we're aligned with ONOS's release. And so sprint number 4 planning is a week from Monday at 10 o'clock. That should give us time to get the 4.1 RC stable and released. Any questions about the schedule?
Will we have any planning meeting next week?
Beyond the 5.0 release planning, do we want to have meetings about the RC?
No, we're thinking about 5.0, but maybe it makes sense to close the.
I think Larry just sent an email that the TST next week will be devoted to planning for 5.0.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Okay.
So my 2 cents, in the past, as we've kind of overlapped pushing the release out the door with doing release planning. And I find that when we're trying to push the release out the door, there's a lot of details to keep track of, and a lot of people are kind of, focused on that process, and it's hard to switch from that to taking the long-term view of release planning. So I am perfectly fine if we can kind of split these things apart as best we can and get the release out and then start planning the next one.
I agree, but I think there is no harm if the only meeting we have is during the TST to flesh out the high-level details, and then we can postpone the deeper technical discussion once we get 4.1 out.
But what's
Right.
the point of doing a meeting if then we will work on everything else? Let's close the release. Let's focus on the finish the release and let's start again over.
This is not the first meeting. It's the TST meeting that we just push out the priorities for 5.0. So we'll have time until the next Monday when hopefully 4.1 will be out.
Yeah, so what's the point of having two separate discussions, lose time for another hours and don't be focused on that meeting if we are all thinking to 4.1? Can we just finish 4.1 and then move forward and not have meetings at all so we don't lose time at all?
Well, I think there's two levels of meetings. There's the TST will be fairly priority oriented and not detailed oriented, but we need to have that in a open community setting. We'll have a TST meeting one way or another.
Yeah, we're gonna waste an hour one way or another.
Exactly.
So might as well work some release planning in that.
I'm not sure which meeting you were referring to.
Personally, I think it makes sense to have an idea of what the priorities are and start just thinking about that before going in technical discussion 1 week after that. So
yeah, and then one other thing that's still very open that we can have a discussion that's a little across the breadth of chord is how we want to continue the progress we've been making on the R chord, M chord, and E chord integration. We didn't get quite as much done necessarily as we had hoped. On the R chord, we've got all of Volta coming, and I think that would probably be the focus of the discussion, as opposed to what's the next 3 things to do to fix the build system or whatever.
So this is just a minor nit, but you said that we didn't get quite as much done as we hoped. I would spin that a little bit and say there was more to do than we realized.
Yeah.
And I think we did really well in getting to this point.
I completely agree.
But yeah, there was a lot of work. So
there's still more to right. And this is going to be part of it. We'll be hearing from MCORD, for example. Okay, now we've got this footing. What do we do next? When is the open source EPC ready? Is that next? Where do we go?
Right. Okay, so I guess we'll go with this schedule and make adjustments as necessary. Is there any other topics people wanted to discuss? Any demos? Okay. If there aren't, how did people think? Did this work well? This format work well? Going to Jira. If you have other feedback about that or how it worked or ways we can improve, let me know. I want to make this as easy to work with for everybody involved. And
5 stars with Scrum again.
Okay. All right. If that's it, I guess we'll group back up for Scrum in about 5 minutes, and otherwise have a good weekend, everyone.
Wait.
Are we going to have the stand-up?
We're going to have the Scrum.
But for what? We just did an update of half an hour of everyone.
Okay.
1 hour.
I guess I really wanted to just discuss, is there anything outstanding that people need that they need to ask other people for? I really want to have this sync up and blah.
Okay, talk to you in 5 minutes.
And that they need to talk to other people about.
I figure people are talking on Slack and in touch, and so.
Alrighty, that sounds good. We won't have the Scrum today, and otherwise have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye,
Cheers,
guys.